How's it going, everyone? Ryan Schremp here with toplessrobot.com. Just thanking you for listening to this podcast, and I wanted to let you know that we're building a podcast network. We currently have 3 podcasts: Animated Opinions, Cosmic Love, and Topless Robot Podcast. If you're enjoying this podcast, please check out our other podcasts. And if you're enjoying these podcasts, it would mean a lot to us if you look us up on iTunes and leave a review. That way other people can find our podcasts. Or share it with your best friend. Nothing's better than sharing podcasts that are awesome with people who are awesome. So, thanks for listening, and here's the episode.
Toplessrobot.com presents...
You're listening to Animated Opinions, the only podcast that's a LimeWire exclusive. I'm your host, Melanie.
And I'm Emily.
And tonight, we have for you a film that we regretted watching and regretted choosing. An Arctic bomb, Norm of the North.
Honestly, it was a bomb, but I don't think it's as bad as everybody says it is. It's not like Ratatouille. Ratatouille is just bad. Norm of the North is boring.
It doesn't have the baffling choices of a barnyard either.
Correct.
I wasn't sitting during Norm of the North like, why did they do this? Norm of the North itself, I have a lot of questions about, but it all makes sense in the context of the film, which is not even a compliment.
Yeah, sorry, Norm of the North. You really didn't hold our attention. And I feel like people hate this movie, but they never watch it. Like, having never seen Norm of the North until just now, all I knew about it is that it was terrible. Absolutely terrible. Don't even bother watching it. It's trash. It's awful. It's the worst thing you'll ever watch. I say that the people who have said that have not seen other films. Just because there are worse movies. There are worse animated movies than Norm of the North. And anybody who says that this is the worst of the worst clearly has not seen enough bad animated movies.
I fully agree. Norm of the North wasn't loud and annoying enough. It didn't try and sell me enough things. It didn't want my attention for a moral that was bad. I didn't get anything to hate out of Norm of the North. I really just was like, all right, yeah, that was a movie that existed.
Once again, it's just ambivalence on the part of on the part of us, the hosts.
I have a lot of non-ambivalence about things like the snow textures and Norm's fur and the lemmings. But on the whole, the film really came out as a resounding
Yeah, it's decidedly average. Norm of the North is a 2016 American, Indian, Irish computer animated comedy adventure film. So it's a lot of things right off the bat. It's directed by Trevor Wall, and it had 3 writers, 2 of whom appear to be siblings. Daniel R. Altieri, Stephen M. Altieri, and Malcolm T. Goldman. I'm sorry if I mispronounced any of your names. You're not listening to this. Who cares? So, right off the bat, what you need to know is that Norm is voiced by Rob Schneider. And we also get Heather Graham, who I don't know who that is, Ken Jeong, who is actually funny and does the best he can, Gabriel Iglesias, and Bill Nighy. And apparently the UK version featured James Corden. I don't know where they stuck him in.
James Corden only is in bad animated movies. What is his deal?
He doesn't know how to pick them.
Why did he play the hand in the Emoji Movie?
Maybe he's only allowed to be in bad animated movies? Like, it's part of it. He's contractually obligated.
Maybe he just needs the money. At any rate, we're not here to talk about James Corden, shockingly.
Well, I mean, we could, but we didn't watch the version that had him. So, Norm of the North was co-produced by Assemblage Entertainment, Splash Entertainment, and Telegal, and it was distributed by Lionsgate. It was released in January of 2016, and it grossed $30 million on an $18 million budget. It temporarily held a rating of 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, but as of August of 2018, it has a 9% rating.
I get it, though. When you're watching movies for a living and you get something as aggressively bland as this, you want people to know to steer away from something that is just a waste of their time.
You know, I don't think it deserves that 0. There are worse films.
There are worse films. There wasn't enough peeing in mouths, by the way. There was only peeing into a fish tank.
Yeah, apparently this production took 6 years, which honestly, I don't understand how it took 6 years. The studios that worked on this, Splash Entertainment and Assemblage Entertainment, Assemblage had delivered 2 feature-length films already. So Assemblage had delivered Blinky Bill, the movie, distributed by Studio Canal, and then it released Norm of the North. So Norm of the North is Assemblage's second feature-length animated film, and they're working on their third, apparently, but I don't care. Splash Entertainment is an animation studio and distribution company based in Los Angeles, and they work on television. This movie, Norm of the North, was the first animated feature they had ever worked on. So I think it really, it definitely shows.
Yeah, it really does just show how first-time movie this is. It's really funny to see the scenes where they have a lot of background characters in it, because you can tell it was a strain to design so many background characters and make them do things.
Absolutely. Splash Entertainment used the exact same animation techniques that the company has done for their hundreds of TV shows. They prevised with the storyboards and they used live-action reference, and they are stated as saying, "It was an exciting step forward to produce a theatrical movie, but much of the process is the same as what we do for TV shows and our DVDs." Now, I disagree here. So they would produce a storyboard for a scene, and then they would do a previs animatic to roughly choreograph the characters' movements, and they would do it with actors. We'd film it, drop it back onto the storyboard, and that became the reference for our animators. And there's something to be said about shooting with reference video, but now that I know that, I did not know that that was their process here. It explains so much.
Yeah.
It explains the stiff movements. It explains how unnatural everything looks and feels. And you can tell that it's somebody overacting for an animated storyboard. So they're, instead of going for something that was naturalistic, it appears that whoever they had acting, I'm assuming it was their own animator shooting their reference video, you've got this person in front of a camera thinking, oh, it's an animated movie. I have to be animated. No, you don't. Like, if you watch any kind of reference footage that's done by professional animators, like from Disney or DreamWorks or Sony, it's very natural. They don't overact. Sometimes they do, but it's to emphasize a point, and it's usually in Disney storyboards for song sequences. And that usually happens when it's middle-aged men pretending to be children.
That makes a lot of sense. Whoever played Mr. Green in most of the storyboard acting scenes definitely acted his little heart out.
Let me just say this. Of all of the characters and how they were animated, I enjoyed Mr. Green the most.
That is also true. His enthusiasm spills into Vera in some scenes, which is really weird.
It's a bit strange.
When they introduced Norm into the condo, I remember her in particular getting like a very active sequence for just a regular line of dialogue. And I was like, okay, I guess she has this kind of movement, whatever.
The designs for this movie too, I guess, were very, I don't know how to describe it. It seems a little bit all over the place. The modelers, I guess their direction was, we need you to create all of this realistic stuff, but we need you to look at it with a cartoonist's eye. And so the models look gross, and the backgrounds look okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's okay. For the Manhattan sequences, they didn't use any physical 2D matte backgrounds. They used CGI, and they built the urban space model directly onto New York City.
Yeah. That makes sense. None of this is surprising, but it is very disappointing. When you're watching it, you really can feel it. And you can feel where they had to cut corners. Especially, there's a couple of sequences that they'll montage their way through because it would have involved a lot of unique set pieces and interesting animation. And it's really funny to see the things that they montage or hand wave.
Yep, they're just like, whoop, never mind.
We don't need this, in fact. Just imagine it happened, kids.
They were especially proud of the dance sequences, and we're going to talk about those. They had a real-life choreographer teaching moves to professional dancers, and then they had non-professionals try and imitate those moves, and all of it was filmed and given to the animators. And now knowing that they heavily relied on this live-action reference, the way this movie looks makes sense. Any good animator knows that reference video is great, but you should also not be animating directly to the reference video. It's just wrong.
So this movie relies on Norm, a bear, dancing. That makes sense as to why his dancing looks so weird, because they were trying to put human dancing onto bear body rather than imagining how cartoon bear would dance with the weight of the belly and the big legs. That explains why his dancing is so off-putting and a little robotic.
Yeah, it doesn't look good is what we're saying.
No, it's very off-putting. I never want to see the Arctic shake for as long as I live. Yeah, let's get into it. Are we ready to roll?
Yeah. I think now that we've provided you with as much as we can when it comes to just the way Norm of the North happened, I feel like now we have to get into Norm of the North itself, now that you've heard us complain about things that we haven't explained yet.
Very Norm, the polar bear. He is the son of the king of the Arctic. In Norm's youth, he developed the ability to speak to humans, a trait that is shared by his grandfather, also the king of the Arctic. Because of this, Norm is made an outcast from the other animals, only being able to talk to the seagull Socrates, a wise bird, and Elizabeth, a female polar bear whom Norm is in love with and gets 1.5 lines in this movie. Spoiler alert.
So none of this is really explained.
No.
He's not truly an outcast. They just make fun of him, but he still gets to, like, live with them and talk to them. And he has other friends besides Socrates the bird. And I don't think Socrates is a seagull, but I don't want to look into it any further.
I don't know, he looked like a seagull.
I thought he was like an albatross or some shit.
But he was seagull colors and had a yellow beak. Sue me.
Am I going to have to Google what kind of bird Socrates is?
You know what? You do that, and I will explain that the opening of this movie is basically Barnyard Part 2. Norm is chasing a seal through the Arctic and does some slipping and sliding, and whoa, isn't this fun and dynamic, kids? But since Norm can talk to humans or is nicer than all the other polar bears or whatever, he doesn't eat the seal. We never get explained what does Norm eat, because it seems like he eats meat. He just doesn't want to eat this particular seal because it's cute. This movie is really weird because they do the animal thing where, like, yes, the bears are the king of the Arctic because they're the top animal and everyone listens to the bears. But also the animals still have the predator-prey food chain. Like, an orca straight up eats a seal on screen. And it's just like, you can't have it both ways, movie. Either everybody's eating everybody or someone's in charge and nobody's eating anybody else on screen. Just pick.
He is a seagull therapist.
Told ya.
Okay, I found Socrates Seagull on Creative Thoughts, that, like, wiki page, under fandom.
Fine. I was right. I don't care.
I know, I'm just saying that Norm of the North has, like, a fandom.
It has one fan. It has one very aggressive fan who wants to put Norm in Smash. He's not gonna get in Smash, you guys.
God damn it. Yeah, so the first time we see Norm, he's buried under the snow so that it looks like he's, like, disguised or whatever, but he's a white polar bear, so he blends in anyway. And he is just so separate from the snow. Like, it looks terrible. The first shot we get of Norm looks absolutely fucking trash.
The snow never looks good, which is amazing because you think about how Frozen came out before this. I think Frozen was holiday season 2015. Just a couple of months before it. And Frozen was like, we developed new ice technology and we made all these fractals and the snow looks beautiful and puffy. And then Norm of the North is like, it's a shiny white texture on the ground that only moves if it needs to for this one scene.
Yeah, well, they were working on a TV budget with TV technology.
Yeah, but, like, it's a movie that has 40 minutes in the Arctic.
So, screw you.
Screw me, indeed. Thanks, Norm of the North. You really should. And speaking of screwing, at least the girl bear isn't sexy.
That's so true.
Yeah, she has, like, girly eyes and, like, a cute face, but she does not have boobs. She does not have any, like, anthropomorphized features. Thus, I'm okay with it.
Nor does she walk on two legs. Norm appears to be the only bear that walks on two legs.
Does Norm do that when he's, does he only do it when he's in New York?
No, he does it for a little bit when he's in the Arctic.
Yeah, you're right, though. He is the only bear that walks on two legs.
It's because he's people.
He's people. He's got a people soul. Like Brother Bear.
Yeah, we have to further emphasize that Norm is different.
This movie also has Minions ripoffs because it came out after Despicable Me. The Lemmings go, and they do funny things. Buy toys.
Yeah, except they don't ever make Lemmings toys, do they?
I doubt that Norm of the North got any toys. Let's be real here.
Yeah, so what is not addressed at all in what we just read as our plot summary is that humans come to tour the Arctic, and by Arctic we mean Canadian North. I don't know. Which is, in all fairness, it is where polar bears live. There aren't penguins up there, I don't think, but there are seals, there are reindeer / caribou / whatever. And there are polar bears, so I guess that's okay. I don't know if we can emphasize the fact that we are just ambivalent. Like, there's a lot to hate, but there's, not enough to hate to make me passionate about hating it.
Socrates' feathers on his wingtips act as fingers, and it made me uncomfortable.
Okay, yeah, those are bad.
Why? And there were 5 of them. It wasn't like it was just 2 of them were fingers, which is kind of cute, And is good. 2 would be good for a sight gag, but 5 is just no, don't make these curl. I don't want to see that.
So it appears that the land mammals are friends, but it's not explained why. So I guess the seals can't talk to the other animals, but Norm the bear can talk to other bears, and the lemmings understand him, even though the lemmings don't use speech as a form of communication. And he can talk to the caribou. So everybody appears to be able to talk to everybody else, except for the seals and the lemmings and the whale. There's an orca.
Yeah, and the orca understands, but just doesn't speak. Again, their animal rules are non-existent.
Yeah, there are none, that's why.
Also, we get our first dance sequence of, I think, 6 throughout the film, where Norm introduces the Arctic Shake. Isn't it funny? He does a dance.
Oh, and we get to see our first glimpse. Oh, this is all flashback, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
So people come to the Arctic. The human models look gross and terrifying. There's only one moment where they move in any kind of okay, realistic manner, and it's a child's run cycle, and that's how Norm gets his iPod, which is how he learns what music is, which is how he learns how to do the Arctic Shuffle, which is a stupid goddamn fucking dance.
And it's the only plot point in this fucking movie that they bother to explain further than, this is how it is. We see Norm get the iPod, we see that he learns to dance because he listens to music. It is the only plot point that is organically explained.
There were plot points?
There were, but the characters just told them to you. This movie spends a lot of time just telling you things and being we're building condos in the Arctic, and a character will just say that and explain it to someone else so you also know about it.
Yeah, no, it's super gross. This film also isn't well lit at all.
I wonder if maybe they had problems with the snow texture that they had chosen reflecting stuff really badly. Because you can tell that, there's the little bit of sparkly on the snow texture, and that they might have been having trouble lighting around it.
Norm is given human traits because it makes him more likable? ?
This is a great question mark. I think the implication is that Norm's empathy helps him be good at saving the day. The movie very clearly is telegraphing this plot point, but does not put enough stock into it to make it a character flaw and then a positive part of Norm's character. It is just a character tenet of Norm.
So, years later, we see and understand that Norm's grandfather has disappeared, and human tourists are filling the Arctic. Socrates shows Norm and 3 Arctic lemmings, who I guess are Norm's posse, a luxury condo that has been installed on the ice. Inside this condo is Vera, a representative for wealthy developer Mr. Green. After Norm saves Vera from an avalanche, Mr. Green tells her to find an actor to play a polar bear for their campaign. Socrates convinces Norm and the lemmings to stow away on a ship to New York City. So, real quick, this is wrong. Norm's grandfather disappears. That is correct. Human tourists are filling the Arctic. Fine. Socrates does, in fact, show Norm the luxury condo. That's fine. Vera doesn't show up until later. What they see is a commercial being shot that Norm sabotages because he doesn't want more people coming to the Arctic. Vera shows up, finishes the commercial, and almost gets, killed in an avalanche. She thinks Norm is going to maul her. She sends this footage to Mr. Green, who then tells her, we need an actor to play this polar bear. Come back and we're going to finish this ad campaign. Socrates then convinces Norm and the Lemmings to stow away in the condo, and then they take the ship to New York City.
All right, fine. You're getting real technical for a movie that, again, has like 5 plot points.
What is there to say?
This is just Colin's Bear Project, the movie.
Oh my god, it is.
I was just thinking about that the whole time I was watching. Like, I would rather watch that guy animate a bear dancing.
So Norm's other friend, Stan, the other polar bear, he is very passionate about tourists coming to the Arctic, and his favorite thing is to direct shows, I guess.
Yeah, like SeaWorld-esque shows minus the animal abuse.
Well, there is animal abuse, but that's fine. Somebody gets eaten. That's totally fine as well.
It's a little bit of eating, and the whale does a twerk, and it's bad.
Ooh, yeah, the whale twerks. And you're just like, how did you do that? But the whale is not allowed to be sexy, but the lemmings are allowed to wear like little tuxedos, I guess?
Yeah, I don't know where the tuxedos came from, even.
How did they get those? And I can't believe you didn't like the Arctic Shake, but here's where we're introduced to Socrates, and we get this gross, stiff featherbird thing.
He's pretty terrible. He's only in like 10 minutes of the movie, and he's mainly just standing and talking, but it's gross. He's gross.
Norm is gross. Everything is gross. Norm has these stupid square paws that are stiff and stupid and awkward and gross. And I appreciated that Elizabeth/Lady Bear still seems to like Norm for no reason.
This is the part of the movie where they spend a while screaming about ice cubicles, and they're clearly like just making an ice cube joke, but they were also implying the drudgery of office life, which, like, 1, how do animals know about that? 2, there seems to be no drudgery.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I just hate Norm of the North. There were better films that came out in 2005. The fur is gross. The snow is gross. The backgrounds are okay. The models are stupid looking. The lady bear's legs are too short. And it's just stupid.
If you do happen to watch this movie, pay careful attention to the director during the commercial sequence, because his entire body jiggles when he talks like an accordion. It is genuinely interesting to watch.
I think the issue is that they were trying to do something along the lines of Sony. Like, they get this squishy, weird, jiggly, dynamic. They're mistaking dynamic animation with actual acting, I think. The director that we were just complaining about is dumb. The mom is bland, Vera is bland, and it is quickly established that Vera's daughter, Olympia, is going to be Norm's BFF and like help him in his accomplishments. The director is like, as things are going wrong, as Norm is sabotaging the set, his comment is, anything can be fixed in post. And I felt this visceral anger reaction. I was so mad. And then as he leaves, he like abandons Vera to die, basically, in the Arctic.
Yep.
And he just says, au revoir, as they say in France and some parts of Canada. I was like, all right, that's okay. That's funny.
Vera, while she's on the ice that is cracking, takes a phone call from her kid, like a video call. And Norm begins to charge her, and Vera is very calm about it and keeps talking to her child and is like, could you Google what to do if a polar bear is charging me? And I was like, oh, you're just gonna let your kid watch you die. All right. You're that kind of mom.
She's totally cool. She does everything for her work. The Foley on Norm's running does not match up. And this actually happens a lot in this movie.
This film doesn't have sound design.
No, this film, well, when it does have sound design, it's done poorly, so it might as well not have it at all.
It's nuts to me, because, like, you're right, I'm thinking about it now. There's not sounds that go with most of the shit that happens.
No, it's just bad. Norm sneaks into this model home, which is being taken back to New York City because they were only allowed to have it there for a few days for this commercial. And they use the song Geronimo. And I'm like, why are you putting this here? And why is Socrates not going with you? He's a bird that can fly.
That is a great question, and one that they don't bother to explain. I would imagine it's because Socrates' voice actor was expensive, and they also had nothing to do with Socrates and couldn't make him, like, I don't know, fall in love with a pigeon.
So Norm and 3 lemmings hide away on this model home as it's being taken back to New York City. And in the city, Norm has to escape 2 guys that come in to, like, clean the condo that are part of the company. And he escapes them by pretending to be an actor dressed as a bear. And he ends up auditioning for Mr. Green's commercial and is taken to dinner by Vera. Green, one of the only intelligent people in this movie, realizes Norm is a real bear and suspects that Norm has come to free his grandfather, who Green has captured. Norm, at this point, does not know about the grandfather. During a public incident involving Green trying to shoot Norm in a restaurant, yay! Norm subdues Green, gaining the attention of the media and heightening Green's approval ratings. Green decides to hire Norm as his mascot.
My first bone of contention, there's no way the boat's getting from wherever they are to New York City overnight.
I mean, we didn't want to render out and animate that whole thing. Well, New York City and Canada, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about. So, like, these homes were being built in the Canadian Arctic, right?
Yes. They're not like the Arctic. So they're going from New York City to Canada.
They also didn't bother animating any kind of, like, dots going on a map for the boat ride. Norm and Lemmings fell asleep and then woke up in New York City. That was it.
Yep, they just show up.
The movie knew you didn't care. This movie feels long. Like, I think this is maybe minute 20, and I recall pausing it to be like, we're not.
Oh, no, no.
Oh, jeez.
I had the same thought. This was calling it right now. This movie is too long. I've 100% been watching for an hour, not 31 minutes.
At this point, we also get to see that Mr. Green is corrupt and is doing side dealings with the Polar councilwoman, and her face is just awful. She's like a 3D Klasky Kuspo character where her mouth is on her chin. It's just, it's nasty.
There is a slight B-plot of Olympia, Vera's daughter, trying to get into this really, like, hoity-toity school for smart people. And there's a comment, she's just like, Latin isn't dead anymore. They single-handedly resuscitated an entire language. And I was like, woohoo! My 6 years of Latin is finally going to pay off. Yay!
It's a shame because Olympia is pretty cute. Like, she's a very Lisa Simpson-esque character.
Yeah, but not as annoying.
Yeah, and you only get little bits and pieces of her, and I kind of wish that she and Norm had teamed up earlier in the movie, or she had gotten a more active role, because I liked her more than Vera.
Green is animated more like your traditional Sony character, like the noodly limbs. He's got a lot of great squash and stretch on him. You can tell that the animator that was like, anytime this guy was on scene, it was make it weird. And this is what you should do. Like, there was clearly reference video that was used, but they went with something more cartoony, with something more stylized. So while I like Green's animation the most in this movie, he also doesn't really fit in with the rest because of how differently he's animated.
Yeah, it's weird that they wouldn't apply those same principles to Norm, who is your main character and should be fun and stretchy.
Right. But why would you do that?
Why would you do that? I think it's because they didn't have any reference footage for how bears moved.
Probably. They probably had someone in a costume do it. And I would also like to point out that everybody that showed up to this polar bear audition that Green was holding had to bring their own polar bear costumes.
That is shockingly not super out of the ordinary.
Really?
Yeah, I could see that where, like, they're looking for a mascot and they're like, just rent a polar bear costume. We only, like, we'll buy one when we know what size you are. Norm ends up winning over Vera and Mr. Green in his audition by doing his dance, and they do the dance with him?
Yeah, I guess everybody knows this dance. Why would Norm know this dance?
Yeah, and it's not an instructional dance. It isn't a cha-cha slide where the song tells you how to do the dance.
I know, it doesn't make sense at all.
No. Oh, that would make sense, though, if it was a, slide to the left kind of deal.
Slide to the right. How would Norm know what left and right are?
I don't know. How does Norm know what school is?
we just kind of have to live with the fact that Norm just knows these things because he's people. And the dance, once again, it's shitty, it's offbeat, just like the lip sync, because the lip sync is terrible. Absolutely atrocious.
Are they supposed to be singing? At one point, they almost sing this song that they play over and over again that I think is an original song for the movie.
It is.
Yeah, but they're not singing it. They're like very clearly not singing it.
Additionally, how did Norm know how to work an iPod?
Great question. Norm gets to go on a television show because he's a very special bear. And he meets Vera's daughter, Olympia, who tells Norm to raise Green's approval ratings and then speak out against him once it's high enough so he can save the Arctic. Norm's popularity and another dance sequence heightens the approval ratings, but Green sabotages Norm's plan by playing recorded dialogue stating that Norm supports Green's developments. You would think that this chunk of the movie is the majority of the movie, right? Like, Norm learns the pitfalls of fame, and then he, gets his plan together and has a change of heart and isn't swayed by the city, and he's gonna say something, and then he gets screwed over. No, this is a 5-minute sequence.
Yep.
The movie just montages through what should have been the vast majority of the film.
It's so upsetting. It's just not good at all.
The montage actually did make me angry when I was watching it because I was like, this isn't what the movie's about? I really expected this to be the movie about the bear that danced and learned a lesson.
No.
This movie spends a lot of time just telling us the plot, and then it montages away 30% of the plot because I think they just didn't want to animate and write jokes for the press tour.
Why would they?
I don't know. That's where I would figure all the humor in the movie would come from, is Norm does a bear thing and everyone thinks that it's a human, a method actor thing. It's funny. It's a miscommunication. Also, the movie tells a really bad gay joke during this sequence.
Oh, yeah.
Norm is dressed in a sparkly bowling shirt, is what I'm going to call it, I guess. It looks like an Elvis outfit. Mr. Green says, "Are you ready to come out, Norm?" Because he's, in a trailer or whatever, and Norm goes, "Ugh, I just did." I was like, ooh, did Rob Schneider write this one line of the movie? Gross.
The only thing I enjoyed about any of this really is that Ken Jeong seemed to be having a great time voice acting. And his voice acting is convincing enough.
Oh, yeah. He's fantastic at being the goofy evil guy, and he tells jokes really well.
Yeah.
At one point, he says that the condo development is going to be Dubai on ice, and that made me laugh.
The soundtrack for this movie was just bad, too.
Yeah. They used a Shut Up and Dance With Me.
Uh-huh. I was like, really? Walk the Moon?
I think that song was big right when they were finishing this movie. Because that plot, if you notice, that dance sequence does not match up to any song. It is just a dance sequence.
Yeah, I think the worst news for me at this point was I realized that I kind of just accidentally already owned the soundtrack to Norm of the North.
Nice.
Which, made me really actually sad inside.
The dance montage here was the 5th dance montage of this movie as I was continuing to count throughout my viewing. Mm-hmm. And there are 30 minutes left at this point, and I am pulling my hair out of my head.
Yay! My favorite.
According to this, you stopped paying attention and started petting Praline, which is the sign that this movie is bad.
Ken Jeong / Mr. Green tricks everybody into believing that Norm said that he supports Green's condo initiative. And I thought it was funny that they were calling them green condos, because I was like, haha, green, nature, Arctic, whatever. So Norm is defeated. He is comforted by Vera and Olympia, who reveal that Green is developing more homes to install in the Arctic. Norm and the Lemmings discover that Green is bribing a high-ranking member of the Polar Council, and expresses this to Pablo, who is one of Green's investors. We are never introduced to Pablo until this point. Vera resigns her position and is hired by Pablo, while Norm and the Lemmings chase the truck holding the houses.
Norm just finds Pablo and is like, Pablo! I think maybe there was a cut scene where we might have met Pablo, because Pablo also knows Norm and does not flip shit that Norm is talking.
Well, everybody knows Norm. He's internet famous.
Oh, that's true. Norm is famous, and also everyone thinks Norm is an actor who just happens to never leave his bear costume.
Yeah, Olympia and Green are the only ones that can tell Norm is a fucking bear, and it's almost funny.
It is. It is nearly comical, and it surprises me that the movie didn't play that for funny jokes.
Well, they tried. I think they tried to, but it just doesn't work because nobody cares.
Vera brings Norm home for dinner, and I think she wants to get busy with this Bearsy.
She wants to fuck.
She wants to fuck. But then Norm kind of diverts the situation by being like, Olympia, we're best friends. And then Olympia hugs Norm, and I'm like, if I were an adult woman, my thought would be, my daughter is best friends with an adult who refused to remove his bear costume in my home. I have to murder him now.
Oh, yeah.
Norm is a scary individual if you think he's a human in a bear costume.
This was the point where, like, everything just got a little bit strange. Because Pablo is just a racist caricature of a group of people. I don't know if you can tell by his name of Pablo what group of people Pablo is supposed to represent. But then we get close-ups on Green, and I realized that he had these weird, like, freckle birthmark things on his face, and I didn't understand what those were supposed to be.
No, neither.
So he realizes that Norm is going to rescue his grandfather and chase down the condos on the truck, and he calls, like, I assume a security detail on the phone and says, commence operation, kill that bear. And I was like, when did you actually, like, outline what that operation was? Has this always been in effect?
So he, like, had to brief these dudes. Not only is there a talking bear, there's a second talking bear, and I've been using him and pretending he's an actor, but at some point I'm gonna need you guys to murder him.
Yeah, like, what?
Where was that meeting? That, again, great funny scene of just like, boss, I think he's a real guy.
Yeah, eventually we are going to have to kill that bear.
It'd be good. But yeah, Mr. Green, after, I guess, briefing his security detail, sends another truck carrying Norm's grandfather, and Norm and his grandfather are captured. After being freed by the lemmings, Norm and his grandfather catch up to the boat carrying the houses to the Arctic and are able to detach the houses. There's like another action sequence between these two sentences, but it's of no consequence. Norm is separated from his grandfather and the lemmings and is knocked unconscious.
Yes. Norm sinks to the bottom of the fucking ocean. No one knows what's happening anymore. The bears run slow as fuck, and the shitty animation is terrible and slow, and the music just cuts out rather than fading at points.
So this is like 3 action sequences stacked on top of each other with very little going on in between. It's not like we're cutting to Vera and Olympia doing things. We're not cutting away to anything. So it just feels really disjointed and poorly paced because you're like, wait, what's happening? What? The bears and the boats and the houses. Did we win?
Lions and tigers and condos. Oh my. Like, they jump out of a plane? Norm? So, wait, no, hold on. I have to go back. Norm gets captured after he releases his grandfather. They run down the turnpike over the bridge, and then they're shot and sedated and tied up and put in a plane. And it's never explained where these bears are being taken now that they've been tranked. And they jump out of the plane into the ocean, and they're somehow okay, and then they somehow get on the ship with the condos, but, like, the people don't want to shoot them, but I guess having them fall out of the plane is totally fine, and they're tied up when they fall out of the plane, but they were tied up, and how do Norm's ropes just magically come off?
There's so many questions about this animation and this action sequence that we don't get the answers to. The best part of it is one of the security guys, the bears, talk to him and they're like, we're human, see? We're talking. And he goes, I didn't sign up to shoot real people. And I was like, oh, but a sentient talking bear is okay to shoot?
Yeah. And the water.
What?
This whole scene takes place on the ocean and it just looks gross.
The water is gooey. Like when you're in the water, it looks like you're in Jell-O.
I'm pretty sure it's just like out of the box water. They didn't do anything to it. They didn't do anything fancy.
Just like Jell-O.
They disconnect the boat carrying the houses and they sink it like the Titanic. And there are a couple Titanic jokes that happen. And they jump off the ship to swim home. I guess.
I guess.
But Norm's grandfather says, see you on the other side, whichever side we get to. And I was like, I'm sorry, is there a polar bear hell? Is there polar bear heaven? Like, do polar bears have a concept of religion and God?
No, the implication, there's a large wave coming to submerge them, and the implication was the other side of that wave or death.
But just go underwater.
Oh, they're fucking bears, Emily.
I hate this movie.
I think this is why people hate this movie so
this
much.
exact sequence. Once Norm and his grandfather are on their way fucking home, everybody's like, I hate this movie.
Well, I think it's like trying to write or talk about this movie when you develop the hatred for it. Like, an average person won't hate this movie because it's over and you never have to think about it again. But once you have to get into the logistics of the second half of this movie, you're like, no!
Like, now that because, like, before we started talking about it, I was just like, yep, Norm of the North happened. And now that we're talking about it, I'm like, okay, fuck Norm of the North.
I'm glad that you outlined what happened in those action sequences, because it all just happened so quickly to me that I was like, my brain could not intake all of it and stopped. I think my brain, like, died and then came back when the plot summary came back.
I think the other thing was that I was mad about is Norm gets, like, almost crushed by this weird, like, metal thing. And I was like, he had all the time in the world to swim around this before he just let it crush him. And then he, like, passes out for a hot second and then has flashbacks about all of his not friends. And then he magically wakes up and finds the strength to push it off of him, and he surfaces. And then it is implied that he is alive, awake, and alert. And then the next scene we get, Norm awakens in the Arctic and is reunited with the lemmings and the other animals, who reveal his grandfather is not found. And I'm like, oh, but he was okay a hot second ago. We could see the iceberg. He was there.
Yep.
I hate
And, like, we didn't see him surface. Like, he didn't tumble onto the shore and spit some water out and then pass out.
No. He's up, he's looking around, and he's swimming. And then the next scene we get, he's waking up.
Yeah, it's weird.
They're just like, Grandpa didn't make it, and Norm is very sad. And because of his heroism, Norm is crowned king of the Arctic, but then his grandfather shows up and is like, you can't do this without me. And so Norm is crowned whatever. Mr. Green is humiliated after his plan is exposed, which seems to take a while. And Vera and Olympia are happy with Pablo as their new boss. They're looking at the stars, and Olympia and Vera are just like, I wonder if Norm is happy and has his own children. And then it, like, zooms out and then zooms down to Norm and Elizabeth, and they have 3 cubs together. And, like, that's how the movie ends.
Yep.
They fucked.
They did do a fuck. This movie's pretty heavy-handed with its, like, don't build houses in the Arctic situation, but I'm just gonna point out, like, no one was gonna do that anyway, movie.
No, nobody wants to be that cold.
No, and it'd be one thing if the movie was, like, about global warming or something, like, very directly applicable to the polar bear situation. No one's gonna build a goddamn condo in the Arctic!
Nobody wants to live in the Canadian North. I'm sorry, there's a reason why Canada's current population distribution is the way it is. I don't make the rules. Nobody wants to be that fucking cold.
No. Also, Norm's dad got fired from being king of the Arctic.
I don't think he was king of the Arctic. I think it was kind of like an Aragorn situation where they had a steward. So Norm's dad was, like, acting as the steward of the Arctic, like, in place of the true king, which is his grandfather. So while Denethor was the steward of Gondor and his sons would have taken his place, they could never truly be king because the line of... It's complicated because it doesn't truly work because they're direct descendants of the king.
Yeah, 15-year-old wrote Aragorn. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Everything's fine.
Also, Elizabeth's one line in this movie, maybe 2, really paid off because Norm did a sex.
Oh, yeah. But, like, as I keep looking at her, like, as a character model, I bet she's, like, the unpopular, designated, ugly, fat friend of the polar bears.
Are there any other female polar bears to compare her to?
Not that we see, but all we have to compare her to are the other polar bear models. And they have longer legs than she does.
That's fair.
Yeah, there's a lemming choir, and that's pretty solid. There's like blatantly ripped off How to Train Your Dragon music. Like they're trying to be John Powell. It's just, who the fuck cares? Polar bears are dying at alarming rates. Come on.
Yeah, no, I agree. The movie closes on its sixth
Woo!
dance sequence after it looked like it had already ended. I was so angry because I was like, oh, we're cutting out without a dance sequence. Thank the Lord. And then they cut back to it.
Yep, and this is where I confirmed that I have the soundtrack for Norm of the North.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, there's a moment, going back to the snow and how much we hated it, there's a moment when Norm is stomping in the snow in like part of that dance sequence, and the snow puff, because they did do like small effects, the snow puff when his foot comes down just stops. The effect cuts out mid-frame, it doesn't finish. So it's like max puff and then just gone. It's amazing.
Someone just turned off that layer.
Yeah. They were just like, whoops, screw it. It's bad.
Oh, God.
That's Norm the North.
Okay, did you watch the ending sequence? Did it look like test animation or like a previs sequence or something? Like it looked different than the rest of the movie by just a tad. I couldn't make heads or tails of it.
I did watch the last sequence, but I didn't understand why we needed it.
No, because it wasn't like the credits were playing on the right-hand side or anything. It was just Norm's dancing, hooray.
No, I think it was meant to be there, but they put it in afterwards. So like maybe they went back and animated it.
But yeah, this was Norm the North. We both suffered through it.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Honestly, could have been worse. I wasn't involved enough to give a shit about it. The parts that I saw were bad, and the parts that I wasn't paying attention to were probably just as bad. But like I said, there are worse animated movies. Critics, however, disagree with me, and they hate it. My favorite quote, I believe, is, "Norm of the North is mildly diverting, although Pixar needn't be overly concerned."
Yeah, that sums that bad boy up right then and there. The more I think about this movie, the angrier I get at it for not having the balls to do anything.
Yeah, it didn't do anything.
It didn't try anything. It didn't try and say anything, even about global warming. It didn't try and tell me a joke. Like,
It's just bad.
I was ranking this as I was doing my rankings. I would place this at 1 above Barnyard. So my bottom 3, which I realize I've never revealed on the show because we've never gotten a movie that slots into the bottom 3.
Yeah, we've never gotten that far.
My bottom is the Studio Brancato movies because, good lord, I'd scratch my eyes out before watching those again sober.
Fair.
Then my next bottom movie is actually Barnyard because I think that Barnyard is worse than anything else that we've watched. And then Norm of the North slots 1 above Barnyard because it's less interesting.
Okay.
My bad factor also involves a sense of like wonder at how bad it is. Like, oh, why did they make that? Does this exist? And that's why obviously Studio Brancato will always sit in my bottom slot because what are those movies? And then Barnyard because I have a lot of questions.
So yeah, at this point we've watched 10 movies. I would say that my bottom 3 are the Studio Brancato films, then Norm of the North. So Norm of the North is sitting pretty at 9.
Dang.
And then Space Chimps.
Wow! So mean to Space Chimps, like you forgot Mars Needs Moms exists.
I preferred Mars Needs Moms over Space Chimps, only because it didn't look as shitty visually to me.
Wow, no, that's a bad opinion and you should feel bad about it.
I don't.
Jeez.
I preferred the character models in Mars Needs Moms to the character models in Space Chimps. The higher production value of Mars Needs Moms is the only thing that puts it above Space Chimps. It's still bottom 5, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah. Again, Mars Needs Moms, I wasn't as interested. Like, Mars Needs Moms is an interesting train wreck if you know the Zemeckis history. Yeah. But if you're watching it cold and you're not an animation fan, I would rather laugh at Space Chimps with someone. Then try and explain how insane Mars Needs Moms is.
But I would never be watching Mars Needs Moms without, like...
someone who understood.
Yeah, like I would never do that to somebody.
I wouldn't subject someone to most of the movies we've watched. Let's be real here. Do I really want someone to sit through monster trucks with me? Probably
yes.
not.
Oh.
I mean, yes.
I mean, I do.
I think the real test is like, you're bringing home a potential suitor or someone you really want to be a part of your life. And you just sit down and you pull on something like Jack and the Cuckoo Clock Heart or like a food fight or something, and you see if they can handle it. And if they can handle you at your worst, they deserve you at your best.
Okay. So now that we've seen 10 movies,
yes,
I think we should do in order from best to worst how we thought they were.
Well, so our number one, y'all know it, you hear it every episode, is Strange Magic. This is a Strange Magic fan cast, and we are here to tell you to watch Strange Magic.
Season 2 only going to be how movies compare to Strange Magic in relation to Strange Magic.
The scale will be only in terms of Strange Magic scenes.
On a scale of scene 11 to scene 312?
Let's just do a minute-by-minute Strange Magic podcast.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, so what is your number 2?
Okay, so my 10. I'm just going to run down my 10 because I feel like negotiating this will take too long.
Agreed.
So number 1, Strange Magic. Number 2, Angry Birds.
Yes.
Number 3. Jack and the Cuckoo Clock Heart.
Yes.
Number 4, Monster Trucks. Number 5, Cats and Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Number 6, Mars Needs Moms. 7 is Barnyard. 8 is Space Chimps. 9 is Norm of the North. And 10 is the Studio Brancato films. I forgot how to count to 10, everybody, and I'm really, really sorry.
Our lists are eerily similar. There is only difference in the 4 to 6 slots, so I'll run through mine pretty quick. Number 1, Strange Magic. 2, Angry Birds. 3, Cats and Dogs. 3 Cats and Dogs? Who am I? 3,
wow.
Jack and the Cuckoo Clock Heart. Number 4 would be Cats and Dogs. Number 5 is Monster Trucks. Number 6 is Space Chimps. Number 7 is Mars Needs Moms. Number 8 is Norm of the North. Number 9 is Barnyard. Number 10 is Studio Brancato. There's a little bit of shuffling in the middle, but overall, it is more of personal preference of cat puppets versus the monster truck than anything else.
Basically, we have the same, bottom 2, and we have, the same bottom 3, I think, and the same top 3, but it's all the films that were 4 to 7. 4 to 6. Those are the films that we felt ambivalent towards, but we had, things that drew us to them personally, which is why we picked them. And I think that affected our ranking.
Yeah, again, I really love the puppets in Cats and Dogs, which is why that movie ranks so highly for me.
I just really loved how stupid the concept of Monster Trucks was. And I love the fact that despite trying to bury it, people went out, saw it, and didn't hate it. And they then had to just be like, oh yeah, by the way, we did release Monster Trucks. And they couldn't just straight up disown it.
Yeah, they had to acknowledge the existence of Monster Trucks. I respect that.
Their campaign of trying to sink Monster Trucks is the only thing that saved Monster Trucks.
It's great. It is so great. That is the close to a season of podcasting, which we're doing this in 10 episode seasons because we're fancy biatches and we want to make sure that y'all have a steady stream of content to listen to.
Which, there might be a couple special episodes when a particularly bad trailer comes out or something.
Yeah. But expect season 2 to ramp up pretty soon here. If you check our social media, you'll know exactly when it releases because by the time you're listening to this, season 2 should be more or less ready to roll.
Yeah.
That's the secret. The sauce.
Production.
And as always, if you have to listen to our podcast, you have to know our podcast is sponsored by Mountain Glacier Spring Water Sparkling Deluxe on Tap. Mountain Glacier Spring Water Sparkling Deluxe on Tap is really a luxury phone app service that brings you Mountain Sparkling Spring Water Deluxe on Tap to your home for express delivery for you to get your gullet wet with only the fanciest water that was assuredly stolen from a natural resource when we didn't need that. So, if you really want something that is a premium, deluxe, delicious, wet experience, Mountain Water Deluxe Spring Sparkling Tap Water Deluxe on Tap, the app, is your place to go. And use our offer code, Natural Resources Are Being Destroyed by People's Greed, to get 15% off your first liter of on-tap sparkling natural Mountain Deluxe Spring Water.
I'm not even going to ask.
So, that's it. We thank you for listening to a season of our podcast. We hope you stay for season 2. We love you. Thank you for listening to our dumb opinions. I'm Melanie.
And I'm Amore.
Goodbye.
I'm queuing up the outro music.